What's your carnal theory?
Hey there, you're listening to Carnal Theory, where we talk with experts from around the world to learn how taking command of our sexual story affects our personal wellness, sexual experiences, and relationships with ourselves and others. Hi everyone, I am Ava.
And I'm Amanda. And today on Carnal Theory, we're sitting down with Bria Gadsen, the co-founder and executive director of Love Your Menses, a nonprofit organization that advocates for equitable resources around menstruation, safe spaces to menstruate, and much more. She's also the co-founder of Merrimack Valley Black and Brown Voices, Inc., providing safe spaces for Black, Indigenous, and people of color to connect, share resources, and reimagine their communities. Bria, thank you so much for being with us. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here and to join you both.
Fantastic. We're happy to chat. So, Bria, as you know, and to remind our audience, we like to start each episode by our guests sharing what the carnal theory is that they've brought for us to chat about and consider. And just as a reminder for our listeners, this carnal theory, it's something meant to challenge a presumption or a perception that we might have around something. This month, our theme is sexual wellness rituals. So we'll be focusing on that a bit today, as well as tying in some other themes that Bria's work is very much involved with. So Bria, if you would kick us off and share with us the theory that you brought for our consideration today.
Yes. So my carnal theory is my womb is powerful. My womb speaks volumes. I will unapologetically embrace and love my womb health.
Thank you for that. I wonder, one question I had when I read that is a really strong statement. How did you get to be able to feel so strongly about your womb? Because that is a process and is not ingrained in us.
Yes. So growing up, my womb was very much a taboo, even to talk about your womb, to even look at it or touch it or embrace it. And so it wasn't until I got to college did I begin having, open and honest conversations with my friends. It started with just talking about our periods and then talking about, our sexuality and our bodies. And from that point on, I started to feel more comfortable just talking about my body. And then it started with me actually looking at my vagina every day and, not being ashamed to look at it because it's a part of me. It's a part of my being. And, from that point on, I started to really love and embrace my womb. And your vagina can tell a lot about, your overall health as well as your spiritual and mental well-being. It's a mind, body, spirit connection. And if you're able to tap into your womb health and understand, the dynamics of your womb and understand who you want to touch your womb, right? If you allow others into your space, just know that space is sacred and you have the free will to allow whoever you want. And you also have the free will to say, no, I just want this just to be for me. And I think, over time, I started to realize how powerful my womb is and how sacred it is. And from that point on, I feel like my health and my wellness have improved because I started to really tend to the forgotten area, which was always viewed as taboo and stigmatized in my household.
Can you talk about some of that power? So that just as to back up, that first line of the theory is my womb is powerful. What is some of that power?
Yeah, I would say that it's interesting to come up with an answer for this, but so my womb, it's interesting because it's like, it tells a lot about my health. And so when something doesn't feel right down there, when something doesn't look right, usually it's because something is not right. And whether it's something related to, my physical health or even my mental health or my spiritual health. And so oftentimes when, I'm not feeling the best, let's say I'm just feeling off mentally, I always take time to self-care. And for me, that's taking a bath or, using, my favorite soap products and my favorite body butters and really taking time to massage down there. And it really helps a lot. And not only has it helped me understand my health, but also even in my current relationship with my partner, it's powerful because the connection I have with my womb has affected my connection with my partner. And because I'm so comfortable with my body and I know what I need for my own pleasure, I feel like it's helped him understand me better, and vice versa. And so I'm not afraid to say like, oh, I didn't shave today or anything like that. And because I'm so comfortable with myself, I feel like, my relationship has improved as well.
Yeah. Hair stigmas, those are their own rituals. And
yeah. Let's talk a bit about Love Your Menses, this organization that you co-founded. It seems like a lot of what you're saying is unfelt by a lot of people or not understood by a lot of people. But it also seems like just the basic knowledge of menstruation, of what's going on in your womb space is not really readily available to a lot of people. Mm-hmm. And I mean, if we don't know how it's working or what's going on down there, it's hard to connect to it and find that power. So what brought you to forming this organization? And can you talk a bit more about what you're doing there?
Yes. So growing up, no one ever talked to me about my period. My first period experience was horrible. I was at camp and this boy said, "Hey, you have red stuff on the back of your pants." And I was wearing white pants. So that just made it even worse. And then I got home and then I was in intense pain and I realized I just got my period for the first time. And my grandmother gave me a pad and gave me pain relievers and said to just lie down. And because my first period experience was so traumatic and because no one, was there to really comfort me and to explain what was going on, from that point on, I always had a negative, thought about my period. I dreaded day 1 and day 2 of my period. Whenever I had it, I just felt so uncomfortable. I felt ashamed. I didn't even want to look down there. I couldn't wait for it to be over. The entire experience was just traumatic. And it wasn't until, I got to college did I begin to question, well, why do I even experience cramping? And so really understanding the science behind it and really looking more into it. And when I started learning about inflammation and prostaglandins and why you cramp, I started to, use natural remedies to try to alleviate my symptoms. And then that also made me question other parts of the menstrual cycle. And I think a lot of people think menstruation is the menstrual cycle. No, menstruation is just one part of your cycle. Every day you're in a different phase of your cycle. And the more you start to be in tune with that, the more you can help solve any, physical, mental, or spiritual, unpleasant symptoms you're experiencing. And so now I know when I ovulate, my body tells me, I know when, I'm menstruating and I know what I need to do in order to alleviate my symptoms. And so I started Love Your Menses because I wanted to educate young girls and young women about the menstrual cycle, especially from those coming from my community where it's very much stigmatized and women are just viewed as caretakers and always taking care of others and never themselves. And, whenever they needed to take care of themselves, was at a point where, it was too late and they needed reproductive health surgery for various issues such as, fibroids or polycystic ovarian syndrome. And so I wanted to start early. So we start with youth, young as age 8, just talking about their menses even before they even have their first period, because we want their first period experience to be a spiritual connection, to be something that they embrace and love and that they're prepared for. And if I was prepared, I think, a lot of the issues I've dealt with in my teenage years probably wouldn't have happened if I knew what I was expecting and knew how to take care of my body and of my cycle. And it's been great to see young girls just learn about their menses and ask questions and, ask about hormones and how they affect the menstrual cycle. And we really teach the science behind it. And not only the science, but also we really stress the importance of having that spiritual connection with your body and embracing it. And there's nothing wrong with, learning more about your body and like I always say, flowing through life unapologetically. So, yeah.
What are some of those, I'm interested on the scientific side, but maybe more particularly for this conversation and even less known, how do you approach the spiritual side of that conversation with, 8 to 12 to 14-year-old?
Yeah. So we always ask them what their thoughts are about their period. Do they feel anxious? Do they feel scared? Do they feel embarrassed? Do they feel dirty? Do they feel unclean? And then, so we always start there to just see, what are their thoughts and their perceptions about their cycle. And then from there, we help to, deal with some of that trauma and what they're experiencing. And one thing that has been super powerful for us is our community conversations, where people in the community, other girls, we love having intergenerational conversations. So we'll invite, older women from the community to share their period stories and offer words of wisdom. And we found that to be super helpful for the girls in terms of tapping into their own womb health and their spirituality, no matter what faith they choose to practice. Just understanding that your body is a temple, and it's important for you to have that connection with your body. And it's so helpful when you have older women in the community sharing their experience, because they're so wise and been through so much. And the fact that the girls can look up to them as mentors have been super helpful. And so, menstruation is very much a spiritual and mental connection, just as it is a physical one. And so by having these community conversations and storytelling opportunities, it's been super beneficial.
I love that there's that mentor aspect, that resource. I definitely think that I could have used more of that as somebody who I feel safe to go to and talk to. I was thinking about this, something earlier in the conversation started to trigger me on this, and then something else you just said, like, underlined it again. So now I feel like I'm supposed to bring it up. In this, and this might be a hole that I'm not trying to go like all the way down into, depending upon how far you're comfortable, but I'm having this thought of, I find it interesting of this full circle as somebody who is raised pretty loosely on the religious spectrum, but also went to Christian schooling. I know my Bible pretty well. I was indoctrinated with no other really better word for it, that, you know, that you're not supposed to have sex until marriage at the absolute, you know, absolute earliest. And in that phrasing is this, your body is a temple, which I find it interesting, because that same language being used now by us, by, you know, I'm hearing you say, by many, many people, and we're finding this liberation and freedom in that sentence, is pretty much the same sentence that taught me, at least, to essentially fear sex, not want it, and stay the hell away from it until I was married, which has its own things to unpack. Basically, until I'm sold off to a man, I gotta keep myself together for said man, because I'm a temple. Not necessarily, I mean, you know, for God, but, you know, also essentially for this man. There's something there that I'm grappling with, and I don't know if you have any insights to unpack that, but I think it's interesting. And I don't know if that's just like we're getting older, and so like we're doing that full circle thing where we start to get like maybe a little bit more conservative than we were, or if it's a societal swing where we really needed to go through this larger freedom liberation time in order to swing over back to something more conservative, to finally find a neutral area where we are a temple, and we, as you phrase it, we're a temple, we understand we're free, and we also have this power in us. So be responsive and hold that sacred power. Do you have any thoughts here, Bria?
Yeah, I would say, you know, you're absolutely right. Like, I think one thing we always start with when we do our workshops is puberty, and just talking about puberty and the stages of it. And the reason why we do that is because for so long, getting your period was seen as, okay, well, now you're a woman, you know, right? You've reached womanhood. If you're a girl, you know, you really become a woman once you get your period. And I think that has been the plight of girls. And I think that, you know, that robs a young person of their youth by saying, oh, because you have your period, now you're a woman and now you can do women things. And it's like, no, you have your period because it's a biological, you know, physiological thing that happens to you, you know, whether, you know, you want it to happen or not, but that doesn't rob you of your innocence, and it doesn't take away from your girlhood. And so what we always talk about is, yes, we know that getting your period, you know, now you're able to, you know, give birth, right? And, you know, have babies, but we try to focus on the other aspect of it, which is you have your period, you know, this is something that, you know, science has, you know, it's something that, you know, is supposed to happen to you, but you can still be a girl and you can still do everything that you were doing before, and you can still be joyful and free and happy and love your body and appreciate it, and not have to worry about now you have to find a guy and you have to get married and do all these things. But no, you can still be a girl and, you know, flow through life unapologetically. And I think we always try to instill that confidence and that liberation within girls. And you know, if they choose to, when they get older and they want to get married and go through that traditional route, then by all means. And, you know, I think even those who do that traditional route, even within my own family, I've seen, you know, my grandparents and great grandparents get married at a young age and have kids and stuff, but they were never like really in tune with their body. They, you know, it was just something that, you know, was there to help, you know, them give birth, but there was never really that, like, that freedom, that reproductive freedom to, you know, learn about your body and embrace it. You know, it's just always so negative and, you know, secretive. Like when you were on your period, it's like they would always say, oh, you know, Bria's just sick, you know, but it's like, no, I'm on my period and there's nothing wrong with that, you know. And I think now the way we talk to girls about their menses, no matter if they choose to get married early or if they choose to just be single and not get married and, you know, go down a different path, that's fine, as long as they're still able to embrace their bodies and love their bodies. So, you know, no matter what path you choose in life. And I think that, you know, by saying your body is a temple, it is, because it's something that you have control over, right? It's not something that someone says, well, your body is a temple and it's supposed to be for you until you get married. No, even when you are married, this is still your body. And, you know, you can still give consent or not give consent to your partner if you choose to, because it is your temple. And that's something that I believe in. You know, even, you know, when I get married, if I don't want to have sex, that's my choice. Just because I'm married doesn't mean I have to have sex or have to do something that I don't want to do. And so that's all. I think when I use that phrase, that's what I mean is, you know, by realizing that this is your body. And we talk about consent. So it's like, if you don't want anyone touching down there, just know they don't have to. Type of thing.
I'm all about that. And thank you for that definition, that clarification. Core part of what we put out for the world in consideration is that you command your sexual biography. So in phrasing it as part of how you can go about commanding your sexual biography is that you can command your temple, that you have ownership over that. Mm-hmm. That is a different mental framing than the indoctrination that I think is put out there, that I received growing up. It's a little different framing. Definitely. Same verbiage, different framing.
Yeah. You've talked about menstruation as this fifth vital sign. What does that mean? Can you talk more about that and how we can tap into that vital sign?
Yeah. So, you know, when you go to the doctor, you know, they take your blood pressure, they check your height and your weight, you know, the standard vitals, they check your eyesight and things like that. And they may ask you, oh, when was your last period? But that's about it, you know. And you know, I have a completely different mindset. I think your menses can tell a lot about your overall health. So if you're experiencing menstrual cramps, it may just be primary dysmenorrhea, meaning, you know, you're just someone who has menstrual cramping, or it can be secondary dysmenorrhea. Maybe there's an underlying issue such as endometriosis or polycystic ovarian syndrome. And even within that, you know, then you have to look deeper and say, okay, is it my diet? Is it my physical activity? Is it, you know, my stress levels that's causing me to miss a period, or, you know, have 2 periods in 1 month? You know, is it, you know, my sexual activity that's causing an imbalance of some sort? And so I think, you know, providers need to do a better job at asking deeper questions, you know, asking about your diet, your physical activity, your mental health, because stress can impact your menses in many ways than one. And, you know, sometimes people say, oh, well, if I miss a period, am I pregnant? No, if I miss a period, am I stressed? What is going on in my life? And that's where I start, you know, but that's also because, you know, if you're practicing safe sex or whatever, then you know that probably isn't the reason, but really looking beyond that. And so I think it's important, you know, to really tap into that fifth vital sign, because it can really tell a lot about your overall health. Maybe if you're getting frequent headaches during your period, you know, we'll look more into that. Is it your diet? Is it, you know, the water source? There could be so many reasons. And so hopefully, I think more people are starting to understand that it is a fifth vital sign. But I think that, you know, whenever I talk about my period or things that I go through on my period, so many women and and people who menstruate, have a similar experience. And they're always like, yes, I get headaches too. And yeah, I miss my period when I'm stressed out, or yeah, I'm experiencing really bad menstrual cramps. And every time I go to the doctor, I get misdiagnosed, or they try to just put me on birth control, but that's not really solving my overall hormone imbalance. And so I think more work needs to be done. I think people want to have these conversations. They want to figure out the root cause of why they're experiencing these menstrual symptoms. And so it's up to us to really advocate for that, and to talk more about menstruation and really get the conversation into the mainstream, so that way it can really become a fifth vital sign where, it's not uncommon to go to the doctor's office or to talk to, your wellness practitioner, and they spend a half an hour or hour just on your menses alone.
Mm.
Yeah, I love that. I had a scary thought just now, which is that probably the vast majority of humans know more about COVID and what's going on with COVID than we do with having a period.
Yeah.
Like what?
This complicated disease versus their own bodies.
And it happens monthly for a good chunk of life.
And that's and that is really disheartening.
Yeah.
People have been getting a period since the beginning of time. And you're telling me that no one still wants to have this conversation. No one knows why you cramp, but they can figure out every reason why COVID is happening. It makes no sense.
Yeah. A lot of the work you do is centered around safe spaces, creating safe spaces, not just in terms of menstruation, but in a lot of different ways. How can we create that or nurture a safe space for us to learn and connect, or even just actually menstruate within? What do you think about that?
So how can we create safe spaces to menstruate?
To menstruate, and also to learn about menstruation and to connect with our menstrual cycle, to talk about menstruation.
I think it's really important to build a community of people, and an intergenerational community. And so, I myself, I talk to friends my age about my menses, and I also talk to elders in my community because they have different menstrual experiences, and they know more than I do. And so I think it's important to have period conversations, whether it's starting with your group of friends, or it can be, I feel like I've had the most honest and liberating conversations with strangers talking about a menstruation. A few months ago, I hosted a period chat. It was a virtual call, and anyone can join the call. And there was one young woman from Canada, and we just had an hour-long conversation about endometriosis and menstrual pain. And I didn't know her. I never met her a day in my life, but I think menstruation is something that is universal. And so no matter what your background is, or where you come from, just talking about menses can be so powerful and help you, understand more about your body. And so I think, finding a safe space to have the conversation, as well as, I think a part of safely menstruating is using safe products. And something that doesn't get talked about enough is toxic chemicals that are in some of these feminine hygiene brands that can really disrupt your hormonal balance and cause reproductive health diseases. And so, I'm a big proponent for using, toxic-free products and reusable products, to be more sustainable. And that's also helped me feel more comfortable. When I was younger, I would use these brands that had fragrances and stuff, because you like the media says, you need to smell good down there, whatever that means.
Yeah.
And it would cause more irritation, and I would be so itchy and just uncomfortable. And so it wasn't until I switched to using toxic free brands did it become more comfortable. There have been days where I don't even know I'm on my period, because, it just feels good down there. And so I think a part of safely menstruating is using safe products and feeling good about the products that you use. Whether you choose to use pads or menstrual cups or period panties, and, doing yoni steams right before your period, whatever it is that you need to do to feel good down there, it's just so important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I have often wondered where the lawsuit is for all of us who, it's like, did you experience, were you exposed to asbestos? It's like, well, this is basically the same thing. Like a little different, but like, where's our lawsuit? I like to see that commercial come up. Have you ever had a period and were advised to use like
it's coming.
I mean, it's one of the few ways to like really change the system, because it's not like in like a lead paint asbestos situation, like those products were banned. We still have these products sitting on the shelves for people to consume. Like, this isn't okay. This is actually something we should be in the streets for. Like, this should change. It doesn't help our healthcare system. It doesn't help our bodies, any of it. Anyway, aberrant. This month we're talking about rituals. Can you mention either or go through some rituals that either you share with young adults or you tap into yourself, be it for the spiritual side or for a relief side? Are there rituals that you suggest?
Yeah. So rituals is something I haven't talked about with the young people yet. But for myself personally, I always cleanse my space. I use sage, I burn sage, and Palo Santo. I have, high vibrational oil, crystals, that
and are there, sorry, not to cut you, are there certain ways that you feel those elements specifically help you, like how clearing your space helps you?
Yeah, I think clearing my space is so important, especially, when seasons change, when moons change. It's so important because I feel like, especially this year, we've been through so much, and there's been so much uncertainty and unpredictability happening. And so I feel like I've been off. Things aren't going as planned. This year just has been crazy. And so I tend to cleanse my space often because I need to make sure I stay grounded. And when I'm grounded and when I'm at peace and when I'm joyful, I feel better mentally, physically, and spiritually. And it definitely affects my womb health. When I am stressed out and doubting myself and just thinking negatively, it definitely affects my cycle. I would say, the months where my periods feel more manageable are the months where I cleanse my space, and, I meditate, and I take time to just be still, and I take naps, and I know how to rest. And it's been so important, and it's something I practice, on a daily basis now, where I meditate. I give thanks. And so even though it's cold here in Massachusetts, the sun will still shine. And so I appreciate that. And I'll go walk outside or just look out the window and just appreciate the sunlight. And so that has been super helpful for me. I feel like just clearing any negative thoughts and negative energies have been helpful. I write a lot. And so I write positive affirmations and I write down my goals and what I want to accomplish. And I meditate on them daily. And I think it's so important to really and do whatever works for you. And so when it comes to rituals, it's so interesting because when I first started really tapping into my spiritual being, I would always ask other people, so what do? You know, what works for you? And then one person said, no, do what works for you. Just do what you feel, right? And so if you feel like meditating, if you feel like what really makes you feel grounded is being outside or gardening or watching the sunset or the sunrise, then do that. And so I always tell people to do what you feel, and then that will guide you. And then over time, you can just build upon that and add more rituals and know what rituals to do during different phases in your life or different seasons. And it's been super helpful for me just to gain more clarity and stay grounded, especially during this crazy year that we're in.
Yes, thank you. And for clarification for listeners, we're using the word rituals, but insert whatever word makes sense for you. Insert habits, insert tools.
Exactly.
I think on what you just said, Abba, a lot of people hear the word rituals and think, or maybe one of two things. Maybe they think, oh, that's like frou-frou, like crunchy stuff. Like that's not for me. I don't believe in like the healing power of a rock, which is like, sure, maybe that's what you think and that's how you feel. Another perspective might be, I know someone who I mentioned rituals to, and they thought of it in a purely religious perspective. Because of course, in organized religion, there's lots and lots of rituals. But I think opening that understanding, or expanding our understanding of what a ritual is. I am so sorry if you can hear my cat. I think he found a pen and is smacking it against the door. Expanding what our rituals, our idea of what rituals means or could be is really important because, you know, the whole purpose of it is for you to tap into something that is healing, something that is grounding, something that is whatever you need. It doesn't have to be, like you said, it could be gardening. It could be watching a sunset. It doesn't have to be speaking an intention into a pebble that you have anointed with your menstrual blood, which is like one thing you could totally do, but it doesn't have to be that. And I think understanding that is really important. I think so in terms of sexual wellness, of course, caring for your womb space and amplifying that power is really important. Do you have rituals that specifically support the health of your womb, or that can help your womb communicate better with you?
Yes. So I love drinking this herbal tea blend from an herbalist who makes it in my community, and so I drink it, right before my period or during my period, because I just love herbs and I love mixing different herbs together for healing benefits. I also do yoni steams. So once again, using herbs, but just, to allow steam, not during my period either, right before or after. I found that to be helpful and just relaxing. Is something I also do is during my period or right before, I always make time to rest. So I'll take naps or I'll watch my favorite show or I'll get a massage or a pedicure, just something to make me feel good. And when I feel good mentally, it really helps me manage my cycle better because like I said, when I was younger, I always had this negative perception about my period because it was so painful. And so now when I know that my period is about to come, I'll do things that make me feel good mentally to put to make sure that my mindset is positive, and that affects my overall energy, and it affects my cycle. And so my cycle becomes more manageable. And I actually tried this during my last period. So, I got a manicure and I felt good. I watched all my favorite TV shows. I stocked my pantry and fridge with all the comfort foods that I love. And then when I got my period, I didn't have to take a painkiller. I experienced some cramping, but I used my heating pad. I watched my favorite shows. I had my favorite tea, and I was fine. And so I really think that a part of taking care of your womb health and whatever ritual or daily practice that you choose to do, make sure that it makes you feel good. I always say that the intentions that you set for yourself can definitely affect your overall physical health. And so it's important to speak goodness to yourself and to your body, and your body will react. You're a living being, and energy is constantly flowing. And so would you rather have negative energy flowing down there, or would you rather have positive energy?
Potentially one more question, both relating to what you just said, as well as the work you do with youth. I'm thinking through all the shame that we hold in having a period and menstruation, the idea of it. And I wonder how much of that energy is carried over to like how we then view ourselves all the time.
Yeah, I think it carries a lot.
Do you see that in the youth that you work with? Do you see a liberation or a freedom that comes when they own their story more fully?
I do. And I think a lot of the youth that I've spoken to, when I give them an opportunity or just open up the space for them to share their stories, they're always like, wow, I never really talked about this before. I never really had a chance to talk to other girls and know that I'm not alone. And there are also other people going through these similar issues. And so I think that's been super liberating. And, we work with youth across the world. And so some youth, the menstrual challenges that they face have to do with accessing products. Whereas other youth, some of the challenges they face is accessing, a culturally competent healthcare provider who can help them with the pain that they're experiencing. And so, we always try to connect them with resources specific to their needs, and just always tell them that you have a right to take care of your womb health, to understand it, to love it, to embrace it, and to advocate for it. And so that's been super helpful. A lot of girls, they have their menstrual diaries now, and they write down what they're experiencing, and they take it to the doctor's office and say, hey, I've been experiencing this, so can you help me with this? Or, hey, I'm noticing, something on my labia. And so, we provide them with the scientific terms, not because, we believe they have to use them, but because our providers have been trained to use this sort of terminology. We always provide our youth with that scientific terminology so they know how to advocate for their health and know that as a way to show the providers that, look, you need to take me seriously. I know what my labia is. I know what my clitoris is. I know my body inside and out. And so I'm not going to accept your bullshit reason or explanation. Like, you really need to help me. And so that's been super helpful when, we can talk to the girls about their hormone levels and talk about each hormone. So that way, when they need to advocate for their health, they know what to say. Because unfortunately, we still live in a society where it's very much elitist. And so, and very much, your education, provides you with this higher status. And so we just make sure girls are informed and know what they need to know, no matter who they're talking to, so they can better take care of their health.
And do you talk to boys as well?
So that's something that we want to do. We have started inviting dads to share their experiences in terms of raising children who menstruate, or just having to learn more about menstruation. But we do want to start talking to boys about menstruation and also about their own reproductive health. I think oftentimes when you hear the words reproductive health, you automatically associate it with a woman. But I think it's important for boys and men to tap into their reproductive health as well. And even with my own partner, I always tell him, hey, it's important for you to understand your body and to embrace it and to love it, because if we're going to be one, and if your energy is around me, I need to make sure that you're taking care of your health and your body, because it affects my being as well, and vice versa. And so, the fact that he really takes care of his body and he's in tune with it has been beneficial to me as well, and the overall energy in our household. So.
Love it. Any additional information you feel would be helpful or necessary to share?
No, I would just say that, menstruation is a natural process. It's something that is natural and it's something to not be ashamed of. And it's universal. And the reason why I say that is because I can talk to anyone about periods. And my story can help someone else, and their story can help me. And so, our organization is just one of many that are doing this work. And I love that menstruation is universal, because, the more we can come together as a collective, and the more we can shift the paradigm and really bring it to the forefront and really break the period taboo. And so, I can talk to anyone about periods. And it's just always so liberating. So I just always encourage people to have the conversation, no matter how uncomfortable it may seem, just talk about it, because you never know how it may help you or help someone else.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Bria. Could you share with us one more time the carnal theory that you've brought for us to consider? And again, listeners, maybe your perceptions have already changed a little bit in this conversation.
Yes. So my carnal theory is: my womb is powerful. My womb speaks volumes. I will unapologetically embrace and love my womb health.
That's beautiful. That should be on a t-shirt. A really long t-shirt. It feels like something we could keep in a journal and return to and speak to ourselves and into a mirror as an affirmation to start your day. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in. We hope this episode has given you something further to reflect upon. And you can learn more about Bria's work on her Instagram at Love Your Menses or at MVBB Voices. And if you want to reach out with any questions or insights, you can do so on our Instagram page at Carnal Theory or at My Sexual Bio. Thank you so much for being with us here today.
Thank you. This was so great.
Carnal Theory is produced by My Sexual Bio. Our sound design is by Audrey Cohane, and our theme music by Men the Universe. My Sexual Bio is an educational platform built to empower people like you to take command of your sexual biography. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, TikTok, YouTube, and Spotify at My Sex Bio. Visit our website and join our e-letter at mysexbio.org and support our work by joining our Patreon. Thank you.